right, Be'ezrat Hashem. So, Pasuk Yud Zayin, Perek Bet Yud Zayin. So if you, from last shiur, we were talking about the Isha Zara and the Nochriya, right? We're talking about the forbidden woman and the foreign woman, right? Two different type of women. The forbidden is the one that was allowed once, and now she's married to someone else, so she became forbidden. And the foreign one is the one that's the Nochriya is the one that's Asur Legamre, right? The Goya, that's Asura Legamre. And we spoke about the difference between the two and how there's the part of the ta'ava and there's the part of the hemda, right? There's the part of the desire and there's the part of the greed. So we addressed the greed. And now Shlomo HaMelech will address the two aspects of the ta'ava. So we said, what is the ta'ava? What is the definition? If you remember, that was in the Pasuk Tet Zayin. What is the definition of ta'ava?
You have two types: desire and greed.
Correct. That's the sod ta'avani, the ta'ava and the greed. Both of them are part of the foundation of desire, right? The ta'ava, the desire, is what the body benefits right away.
Direct to please the body.
Yes. And the chemda, the desire, the greed, is what a person foresees, but it's not a physical direct pleasure, right? Like we said, nice clothes, a nice house, a full bank account. All these are greeds, right? All this is greed. It's not pleasure. Pleasure is eating food, drinking something good, the sleeping, etc. Yeah?
And okay.
So, and obviously, the Perek is talking about the Torah and the Avodah, that the accomplishments a person needs to do in order to be saved, right? From these flaws and these vices. And the vice of the pleasure and the vice of the greed, right? When it comes to the ta'avani. We spoke about the kasani before that, right? If you recall, right? We spoke about the kas.
Yes.
And now we're talking about the ta'ava. So we spoke about in last year about the chemda. Now we're going to talk about the actual physical pleasure. So in Pasuk Tet Zayin says, Le'atzilcha me'isha zara, right? To save you from the forbidden woman, minochriya, from the foreign woman, amaria helika, that her talk is very smooth, right? So that's and then Shlomo HaMelech continues. That's Pasuk Tet Zayin from last year. Pasuk Yud Zayin. Ha'ozevet aluf neurea, who leaves her companion from her youth. Ve'et berit Elohea shachecha, and she forgot, she disregarded the brit, the covenant of her God. Right? And these are the the outcomes of not being properly engaged intellectually, emotionally in Avodat Hashem, like we said in the beginning and throughout the Perek. So Shlomo HaMelech explains we're talking about two types. We're talking about the Isha Zara and about the Nochia, right? So the Isha Zara, ha'ozevet aluf neurea, the one that leaves her companion from her youth, refers to the Isha Zara, refers to the forbidden woman, which is what? Which is the chemda, the greed. Why is it a greed? Because we say that why is she forbidden? She's forbidden today, but she wasn't forbidden before. Just like the greed. What is the greed? The greed is the excess of what is existentially needed. Correct? Like we said, existentially, you have to make money to eat. You have to eat. You have to drink. You have to reproduce. Once you don't have those limits, you fall into the greed. And then what happens? You no longer see what you need and what is existential for you, but you start focusing on others, on the other guy's house, on his business, on his car, on his wife, on his boat, on his blah blah blah, right? Like that's the Isha Zara. So it starts from a place that is kosher, that is allowed, that is a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah, right? It's a mitzvah to eat. It's a mitzvah to drink. It's a mitzvah to be dressed. It's a mitzvah to make sure you have a roof over the head of your family. All these are mitzvot. The moment you overflow, right? You slip away from the core essence of the mitzvah, you fall into excess, and that excess leads you to start looking at others, right? And this is when it becomes the Isha Zara, the forbidden woman. So our Zevet Aluf Neurea is that this greed, says the Gaon, makes you disregard what is yours and starting to want what is someone else's. Aluf Neureha, her companion from her youth, is her husband. Is basically what has been with her, what has been making her grow, develop, flourish. Says the Gaon, it's basically leaving the Torah. That's your Ba'ala. What is the husband of the Neshama? It's the Torah. The Torah that's coming to give the Neshama all the guidance, the security, the wisdom, the bracha, the blessings, right? The Torah provides to the Neshama. The Neshama benefits from the Torah. Just like the husband provides to the wife, and the wife benefits. And then the wife brings life with her husband. The Neshama brings life through the actions and the growth to what she received from the Torah. So says the Gaon Mivina, when you don't have the proper outlook like we've discussed in the Perek, so basically you let go of the Torah Why? Because you're focusing on what others have. So you disregard what's yours. You fantasize on what is not yours. And at this point, you're willing to trade Torah for money, for physical pleasures. Now, we're not talking about physical pleasures of the body. We're talking physical pleasures, money, like money, houses, clothing, etc., which is not a direct pleasure of the body. He says, but this comes with a tremendous price, says the Gaon, because you go from a state of natural equilibrium, which is the intimacy and the balance that a person created through his growth with the Torah, values with his midot, his legacy that he's learned. And now he's going to a field, to an ecosystem that's not his, right? That is foreign to him. Because he wants something that's foreign to him also. So the price that he pays for that, says the Gaon, he has no peace and no serenity and tranquility, not day and not night. Why? It says the Gaon, very simple why. Because you never really achieve what you really want, because you never know what you want. Today you want his house. After that you want his wife. After that you want his car. After that you want his work. After that you want his bank account. He's no longer interesting, so just somebody else, right? So you never get to a place of satisfaction and serenity. So during the day, says the Gaon, you toil, and at night you torment. And the person just traded his life of tranquility and harmony and balance with a life of kaas and machovim, of anger and pain. He says this is why Shlomo HaMelech uses the word aluf. Aluf, it brings the pasuk va'alefcha chokhmah, milashon aleph, right? The beginning, the youth, the birth. It's like the Torah is so imbibed, is so part of you that it's part of your inception. So you don't need to run anywhere to actually learn it and benefit from it. All you have to do is be open to it because it's already there. Vadai that you have to go after the Torah and right? Like the Pirkei Avot tells us. But it doesn't affect your emotional balance. This is where Shlomo HaMelech is going. It's like you're trading emotional serenity and tranquility for physical toil and torment. It says, berit Elohea shachecha. That's the first part of the pasuk. The second part of the pasuk, and the covenant of her God she forgot. So it says now Shlomo HaMelech is referring to the Nochriya, to the foreign lady, to the alien lady, right? To the Goya. And we said that who is the Goya? Who is forbidden from the beginning is the Ta'ava, right? The Chemda, we said, has a foundation of heter, of mutar, of good, but it gets okay. The ta'ava, told us, the Gan told us from the beginning, it's asur. So the moment you fall for the ta'ava, you've married yourself, you've given yourself to the goya. He said, how is that a trait? How are you you betraying? How are you betraying your identity, right? When you go and you marry out of the community, you betrayed your identity, right? You're with me? Marrying a goy, according to the Torah, you betrayed your identity. It says when you fall for ta'ava, it's the same thing. You betrayed your identity. Why? It's like you married a goy. How is that? Is that because you're now married to the Torah? And who are you going with for? You're going for the body, for the flesh. What is ta'ava? The physical pleasure. So to the eyes of the Torah, what have you done? You've left the Torah and went for the steak, went for the physical pleasures. And this is breaking the covenant with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, and it doesn't, it's not just talking about a guy that all day long does feels his pleasure. It's like even if the man is learning Torah, if he is involved in ta'avot and he falls for his ta'avot, the influence, the psychological influence of the impact of the ta'ava, right, of the pleasures on the nefesh of the person is so great that when he learns because of his ta'ava, because he needs to also satisfy it. It's no longer a pure limud. So it basically what Shlomo HaMelech says, that the person that is driven by his desires, it formats its brain that everything is now desire driven.
But in order to study Torah, you have a desire to study Torah. What's the difference if it's
I'll tell you what the difference is. What happens the days that you don't feel like learning? So you don't learn. The desire, it's an emotion, right?
Yes.
It's a muscle that but it's not consistent. Could be, that's the definition of an emotion. It's something that comes and goes. So not every day you want to pray. Not every day, or you want to pray the same way. Not every day you want to learn the same way. What happens when you're tired and you have to go to shul? Some days you wake up, you're fresh. Some days you want to stay in bed. Some days you don't have time for mincha. Some days you have plenty of time. What happens in those moments where you're challenged by an emotion? So if you have clarity and you're married to your Torah, you're married to your values. I want it, I don't want it. This is the brit. There's a covenant. When you make a brit, okay? When you make a covenant, you sign a contract with someone. It's with you all the time. There's no you want, you don't want. Nachon? And we learned that the Gaon in Sefer HaYetzirah teaches us that the brit, the definition of brit, it's a transfer of assets. When we do brit milah, what happened? We took away a piece of us in order for the neshama to become one with us. the extra piece of flesh never is coming back. It's gone. The same way the brit, we don't break a brit. Once it's done, it's done. So it says, how come now, if you have a brit with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you hold on to that covenant, to that pact, well, it doesn't matter what you feel. I'll ask you a question. Yeah, you're a businessman and you have business responsibilities, right? At the end of every month, you need to pay salaries. You sign a contract, right? You have an obligation to pay. Does it matter if you want to pay or you don't want to pay? You have to pay. You have to pay. Yeah, that's it. You're responsible to pay. And by the way, the employee doesn't care how you feel that day. All he cares about, he worked, he gets his salary. It's the same thing. That's the brit. So says the Gaon Mivilna, based on Shlomo HaMelech, when you live your life through the value and the engagement and responsibility of the brit with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with the Torah, Banim atem l'Hashem Elokechem, like we read in last week's parasha, Am Segula. So it's irrelevant in which emotional stage you are. You're dedicated. So what is the danger? Says Shlomo HaMelech, when you start falling for the ta'ava, when you start living your life that is driven by pleasures, you slowly start to format your behavior in a way that you are only driven by pleasure. So to the point, says Shlomo HaMelech, that it contaminates your desire to learn, and you only learn because of the pleasure of the desire. You understand? If there's no desire, you're not going to learn. But even when you learn, it's because of a desire. This is the motive. Says Shlomo HaMelech, this is how contaminating living a life with pleasure is. You understand? It's and that's Shlomo HaMelech. That's the same Shlomo HaMelech, B'Meir, that we mentioned offline, that is saying, how do you differentiate the Yetzer Tov by the Yetzer Hara, right? That the Yetzer Tov cannot have a physical excitement, and the Yetzer Hara cannot have a spiritual excitement, right? The Gaon in Ruth. Here he comes and tells you, the same Gaon comes and tells you that the ta'ava can contaminate your brain, can contaminate your neshama, or the access to your neshama, to be more exact. Another big difference you will find between someone that learns because of it, he is driven by desires, and versus someone that learns because he honors and respects the covenant that has been made between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Am Yisrael. He says it's also in the qualitative aspect of the Torah. He says somebody that has a desire is going to want to feel satisfaction of accomplishment. So he will easily dismiss the importance of a word of Torah or of a simple mitzvah. Right? Like Rashi says, the mitzvot that you dash with your heel. The mitzvot that So says Shlomo HaMelech, and this is a point of reference that we need to, in order to inquire within ourselves. When you serve Hashem because of the respect and engagement of the covenant of the Brit, the slightest word, shekula milah keneged kol hamizvot, right? One mitzvah that you didn't do, like the Brit Milah, for example, right? Equals like all the mitzvot of the Torah. Nachon? That's not a mitzvah you did. You didn't choose to do it. It was done against you, but it's still considered as if you did all the mitzvot of the Torah. To come and tell you how valuable the simplest mitzvah is. On another dimension, to come and tell you what the dimension of a brit means. The brit means it's about all the Torah. And if you understand that every simple mitzvah is valuable, is important, then not only you're going to know about it, but you're going to make sure that you try to do it, right? So suddenly, every word of the Torah, every mitzvah of the Torah has depth, has meaning, has importance. Where, on the other end, if you're motivated by pleasures, so you're going to start dismissing some mitzvot that are not pleasant, they're not desirable. So says the Gaon, he implies that if you want to know where you're holding, test yourself. Do I do mitzvot just because they are desirable and pleasant? Do I dismiss mitzvot because they are not important? And if I do dismiss, that means that I'm driven by desires. But if every mitzvah is important, and now that doesn't mean that I engage in every mitzvah the same way, yes? But at least the approach, the outlook of the Torah and the mitzvot is based on a responsibility, on a burden that I carry. Then everything becomes important. So this is another way to introspect ourselves and test, where do I belong? Am I driven by desire? Or am I serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu because of the respect that I have for the Berit?
Spectacular.
Let's do one more pasuk, if you have a, because it's part also of the ta'ava, so we complete the aspect of the ta'ava. Ki shaha el mavet beta, pasuk yudchet. Ki shaha el mavet beta, because her house sunk to death, to the death. Vel refaim ma'geloteha, and her course leads to refaim, to shades. Says the Gaon, ki shaha el mavet beita is referring to the ta'ava, to the nochri'ah, like Shlomo HaMelech calls it. The house sinks to death says the bayit is the foundation, right? is where you belong, is where you feel secure. A home is where you feel secure. It says there's two types of home. There's a home where you cultivate life and growth, and there's home where you cultivate desires and pleasures. Now, a home where you can cultivate Torah, wisdom, mitzvot, says the Gaon, is a home where you have life. Why? Because you inspire, because you impact, you teach, and right? Torah Chaim, the Torah is in itself a source of life, is life. But when your foundation is based on what we said, running after the pleasures, then again, what are you running after? You're running after imminent physical pleasures. So essentially, what are you banking and basing yourself? What are you double downing on the body? But the body will die. So what are you investing in? You're investing in death. Understand? So do you invest in Chaim, in Olam Haba, in Torah or Mitzvot, or do you invest in the body? The body is a commodity that can only go down. Where the Neshama, the Torah, is a commodity that can only go up. So says Shlomo HaMelech, the Ta'ava, living a life of Ta'ava, is an investment that only will go down. There is no benefits and outcomes of the investment in Ta'ava. Ve'el refa'i margeloteha. Says this is already the chemda, the one that runs after the money. Right? He says, Ve'el refaim, the shades, margeloteha, her course leads to the shades. He explains like this. He says, refaim, milashon rifion. Rifion is to let go, to weaken. There's somebody that is always focused on money, on running after the money, again, because of his greed. Let's be careful. We're talking about because of his greed. And he says, and he sells products all over the world. He brings from China, sells to this, he brings from that, says to that. He's the logistical aspect of his business is overwhelming. So Kshebala Torah and Mitzvot is so drained by his business engagement and responsibility that when it comes to Torah, he lets go. He is weak. He doesn't have a sharp mind. He doesn't have the heart. He doesn't have the dynamic approach that he should have. So the mitzvot are becoming heavy. The Torah is becoming heavy. Again a shiur, again mincha, again arbit, right? Because he exhausted all his efforts in running after making something just because of what he's He's seen around him. So now he doesn't have any strength. He doesn't have any desire for the Torah. So it becomes heavy. When the Torah becomes heavy, says the Gaon Mivilna, now your guards are down. Your guards are down. You are open to Averot. It says the Vel Refaim, it's the ones that let go, that are letting go of, are weakening themselves in Torah and mitzvot. We lead him. We lead him to what is more, the person that, because he's so involved in the business and so exhausted by it, he lets go. He doesn't have koach with the Torah. The Torah becomes heavy. Lets his guards down. Lets his guards down. Right now, the averot are not so important anymore, or not so. He's not so sensitive to it. And he says this is the sort of mitah, the sort of effect, the rifion, letting go, and this behavior, this is what leads a person to Gehinam. This is what leads a person to mitah and karet, Hashem Yishmor. So we finished Pasuk Yud Het. Yeah, being there. Next shiur, Pasuk Yud Tet.